Okay, class. So, I wanted to do a quick color mixing video just to show you the possibilities of mixing flesh tones. And I have a few different ways of going about it. The most traditional way that everyone should probably learn is to use simply red, yellow, and blue. I know it sounds crazy, but once you start making sort of the orangey colors, the yellowy oranges, and you add blue to it, and you add white, you start getting a very good flesh tone. And you can kind of shift it one way or the other. If it's red, you add more red. If it's more yellow, you add more yellow. Or, even if it's more blue, which typically you want to use very little blue, that's a possibility too. And of course, white. I just got a brand new tube I'm really excited about. I threw another red on here. This is quinacridone red, cadmium yellow, and ultramarine blue. I threw another red on here just in case this one doesn't do what I want. So I have a different red. It's Peronone, I think. And I have another sort of way of doing it. I'm gonna try, I've never actually done this with oil paint, but I saw a demo with acrylic where they used burnt sienna and yellow ochre, and that was very curious to me. So I was gonna try these two colors since these are colors that you use in your underpaintings anyways. So it's kind of interesting thought. And then also the really cheap and dirty method is just, I got a tube of Caucasian flesh tone right here, which I can show you the pros and cons of using this. I mean, it's sort of the cheater method, but this works really good if you want to find different values of, Caucasian flesh tone. There's also ways of mixing, sort of like African flesh tones, dark-skinned people. If you use, for example, I think they had an example where they used this color, cyan blue, and a little bit of yellow. And those colors, you were able to make a darker flesh tone. I don't have any cyan blue, unfortunately. Again, that was from a demo that was using acrylics. So let's give this a shot. First of all, typically you want to take a little more yellow than anything else because it's the easiest color to corrupt. So you usually need more than you think. I'm going to take a little bit of red into it. Okay. And the tiniest bit of blue. And we start to get a color that is a flesh tone. Now you can push this and pull it different directions. If it looks a little too orange to you, which to me it does seem a little bit on the orange side, put a little more yellow in there. But the real trick is to have different variations because, flesh tones aren't universally the same all throughout the body, depending on how the light's hitting it, depending on, well, a lot of factors. So I'm going to do one more over here. This time I'm going to let it get a little bit oranger. And then I'm also going to do one over here. And I'm going to use a lot more blue than I would have in the other ones. Just a tiny bit of blue there. Whoops, that might be too much. Yeah, it's gotten really green very fast. So let's get this red back in there. This is good, actually. This could be like color of lips and stuff. It's a little more brownish with red tones. And yeah, this one I'm a little worried about. Let's get some more red in there. I'm gonna let this one be kind of dark right now. So, see how much bluer that one is? This one's more in the middle, it's a little bit yellow. And this one's definitely more red. If this seems too yellow, you can always just add a little more red to it or a little more blue. The idea is, you shift these just a tiny bit at a time. Now I'm going to take this beautiful thing of white because I have a bunch now, a big blob of it. And I'll make different tones of each one of these. So try to mix some of these colors together. I should be wiping off my palette knife. I'm getting a lot of junk from these. So Now here's a flesh tone here. This one ended up being probably more of that one because I had too much of my palette knife. Being stupid. But see how much more yellow, kind of golden this one is. And then let's see what happens with this. Now I'm hoping this one's going to get a little bit more grayish. In case you have to paint zombies. Just kidding. And then I can take a little of this, put it over here, and add a bunch more red to it and get a color that's much rosier. And this could have, you know, applications on the face. Now, I think a tiny bit more blue in there. Let's see what happens. It's getting too green, more red. There we go. That's almost right on the money for a good kind of medium-ish flesh tone. And then I can add more white, obviously, into areas to get lighter versions of this. Or the same with any of these. But pretty fascinating that you can just use those three colors and make flesh tone. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and give an experiment to these two. So this is burnt sienna and yellow ochre, the very common colors. So first I'm going to do one that's more reddish. Now I think acrylic burnt sienna sometimes is redder than this, so I'm afraid this is going to get too... Let me take this back. I'm going to add more yellow, tiny bit of brown. Okay, and then just a hair of blue. It's almost more brown than I would like. So again, this was kind of an experiment for me. I wanted to see what this would do. And it's possible I just got the wrong combination of colors there. I guess that's a flesh tone there. It doesn't have a lot of tonal, other color tones in it. Like it's very kind of just tan. Where these ones, you know, there's hints of reds or yellows or kind of blues in those lighter tones that you can tell. And a lot of times when you're, you know, copying an old master, you're trying to match those the better that you can. Now the trick and, you know, the cheap and dirty way of doing this, when you get tired of trying to mix these all the time, though honestly I think this is a good habit to be in. You know, it's a good habit to mix your own flesh tones or explore the internet. There's a million different recipes for people's way of getting their flesh tones, and some of them have really good advice, and it's worth, you know, looking at. But if you have this sort of generic peachy color, which looks like, you know, plastic Barbies, you can add some white to it. And, oops, let's get more white. You can make it lighter, right? However, if you need it to shift in a direction, let's say this plastic Barbie look is not for you, that's when you go ahead and introduce, just shift it a little bit with a little bit of this other color. All it does is kind of save you some of the mixing time by, like, I'm going to put a little bit of blue in, a little bit of yellow, and then a tiny bit of red. But it kind of gets you halfway there. It gets your flesh tone halfway there, and then you can kind of just shift it by adding tiny bits of your other pigments to it. So it's kind of just filler. I don't know. It looks kind of gross. Too green, so let's put more red. Yeah, it's a decent color there. And then to see what that does, I'll add white to it. Okay. So just different variations of flesh tone. And you know, there's even more. I'm just gonna play with this one a little bit more. I'm gonna put a little more blue in it. Okay, variations and different combinations.